several of our own, which is always the goal. But you still have to prepare as if you may lose some of them once they get to free agency. I want to thank Terry and Kim, that every year they give us the financial resources. Obviously this has been a tough year for everyone, but to allow us to go out and spend to the cap, which is really a competitive advantage for us. And then, we delayed this, for an hour, and I know that the news apparently just broke as they were logging me in here, but we were finalizing a deal with Mitch Trubisky for a year. I'll talk about that shortly, but we wanted to get a hold of Matt Barkley and just and tell Matt, thanks so much for what he'd done and explain what was going on before he heard it in the media. So apologize for the delay, but that's why it was. Is that all the questions?
Hey, Brandon, Thad Brown. I think the thing I want to start with is the strategy to kind of go after your own guys. You guys were in a spot where you didn't have a lot of cap room to spend, but you do have culture, and value there to spend. Was it a strategy to pursue your own players, believing that because they had experienced the culture and believe in it, they might be a little more amenable to do things that would fit into the salary cap situation you were in?
Yeah, very appreciative of our guys through the process. It's it's a tough time for them. They're trying to make a family decision. Sometimes it's their first payday, maybe their second, but the guys that we were able to retain, great open dialogue through the process, whether it was me talking to them, their agents, sometimes Sean, sometimes position coach, just what it looks like coming back here. And also sometimes guys leave and we support that as well, that that's the best decision for them and their family. But, Thad, it's exciting to get the guys back that we did, a lot of free agents. And as we said a couple months ago, we knew we would lose some, but to be able to get, the guys back, Matt, Darryl, Feliciano, many of the other guys, and we're still trying to add some. We agreed to terms with Tywan Jones today as well. So glad to get him back. And then we'll continue. We still have some other guys that we'll continue to monitor, and maybe more of them return once they, figure out, where their fair market value is.
And then what's the thinking behind adding Trubisky, again, in a spot where you don't have oodles of cap room to spend to chase, or to sign what seems to be a pretty high level backup quarterback?
Yeah. What I would say about Mitchell is he was drafted, I believe, number 2 overall, physically very talented, athletically can do some of the same things that Josh can do, with the RPOs that Brian Dable uses in this system. And listen, I don't know all what went on in Chicago, good, bad, but he started 50 games. He won 29 and 21. I think, the label sometimes has been put on Mitchell from afar that maybe he doesn't deserve it all. I don't know, but he's a kind young man, caring, and just this is a reset for him. And we don't expect him to be here long term. This is a kind of a 1 year, probably not in his plans when he was drafted where he was, but we hope it's a great reset for him. Sean uses it, make you be, the best version of yourself here in Buffalo. And then, hopefully in a year, he'll get a chance to go back and land a nice contract and a starting job somewhere. We have no doubt that that'll happen, but we're excited to add him here in the mix.
Thanks, Brandon. Good to see you again, too.
Yeah, you took that.
Hey, Sean, question for you. Emmanuel Sanders added to the roster. Where do you see him kind of fitting in, and why was that a good addition for this team?
Yeah, Josh, good to see you again. Let me also reiterate what Brandon mentioned. Great team effort to get us to this point. I know adding Emmanuel, and you want to talk about him, and I'll do that. Brandon and his staff did a great job. My staff, there's a great communication around this process with free agency. Terry and Kim, their commitment to winning, doesn't happen everywhere. With respect to Emmanuel's situation, he's a guy we've tracked for a couple of years. He's been in winning locker rooms. He's won a Super Bowl. Obviously, he had some big time impressive numbers this season. Listen, you never want to lose your fastball. In terms of what we were able to do last season, we thought it was important, Brian and I, and then Brandon as well, to make sure that we didn't lose our fastball with respect to the play at the wide receiver position. Obviously that involved a tough decision as well with John Brown, and that's real. I mean, Matt's situation that Brandon mentioned, this is a tough time of year. It's a good time of year to add pieces, but it's also a tough time of year, and those are decisions that we take very seriously because there's families involved, there's emotions involved in those as well.
Brandon, one quick one for you. I know you're not going to play out any contract negotiations through the media, but is there an update on Josh, and do you feel like it's kind of headed in the right direction?
Yeah, he said he was going to give us a nice hometown discount, and hopefully we'll get him done. Now, in all seriousness, we'll talk to Josh and his people probably later in the spring, get through the draft where we can just focus on that. That's obviously a big financial commitment that you have to make. And so that'll probably be, sometime May through the summer. I don't know.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Yep, you too.
Brandon, John Worrell with the AP. How you doing?
Good, John. How you doing, buddy?
Good. Hanging in. I'm just wondering, I mean, when you were a little cautious when we last spoke to you back in January about what you can do in free agency and as far as retaining players and adding players. What do you make of the methodical approach of how things kind of laid out for you and your ability to not only re-sign 3 key guys, but to add guys like Trubisky and Sanders? What do you make of how methodical that kind of just unfolded for you?
Yeah, I mean, John, you lay out a plan, and we wanted in January to bring back those guys, and listen, there's some guys that left that we would love to have had, but there is only so much that you can do within the cap. But we're excited to get the guys we did. We're excited that Emmanuel Sanders chose to came here. We had some competition for that, and today adding Trubisky and we got our new punter for 3 years, so we'll have some continuity with our specialists, which is very important between holder kicker. So, hopefully, guys, I think the culture that and winning and the play of our quarterback, I think all of those things. We're a team that has trended up the last couple of years. Again, new year, and a lot of work to do. But hopefully, all of those things were attractive for our own guys to stay, and then for some of these new guys to come give us a shot.
And pardon me, I was remiss in saying hi to Sean, but this is for either of you, if you can answer that. And it speaks to the culture that's been developed. When you hear guys taking the so-called hometown discount to be part of a winner, and even looking at Levi Wallace, what does it mean to you in how this thing has changed in your 4 years here, where you may have had to overpay for guys 4 years ago, where now guys actually are actually lining up the door and wanting to come here?
John, Brent, I'll take the first part of it and I'll volley to you here. But John, I just want to make a point that the culture has been built by a lot of people, and some of those people are the guys that we re-signed, and that's it'd be remiss if we didn't mention that. Like, the culture isn't just Brandon and myself; it's everyone in this building, it's everyone on our staffs included, and then it's the players as well that have helped make this culture, and we've got to continue to add to that culture critical pieces, because we're losing some critical pieces here as well. Matt Barkley, a big part of that. I mean, we're not where we are without Matt Barkley. And so it's important, that we continue to add the right pieces. It is, we have established, I think, a standard and a culture, but you've got to continue to cultivate that culture, or it's going to deteriorate in the worst ways. So, Brandon, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I think you said it well. I mean, that term hometown discount gets thrown around a lot, John. I think at the end of the day, what you want to find, similar when you do trades, is you want to find win-win fair deals where, usually the best deals are when each side maybe gets a little uncomfortable. But at the end of the day, we want the guys that want to be here. And that's what's so exciting about our guys that we were able to retain, how excited they were, to extend and stay here for years to come.
Thank you.
Hey, Brandon. Hey, Sean. I've got a question for you, Brandon. Just in regards to the mantra of draft, develop, and re-sign, the fact that you guys were able to re-sign some of those guys, and Matt Milano too, someone who you drafted, and Levi Wallace coming back. I know Daryl and John weren't necessarily drafted by the Bills, but what type of a message does that send to the rest of the locker room, knowing that you're bringing back some core guys who do add to the locker room in a lot of ways?
Yeah, it's a great question, Maddie. Good to see you. I think at the end of the day, that's what you want. The perfect world is you draft, sign, develop every single player. It's the business. You can never keep them all, and sometimes not all your draft picks work out. But for us to be able to retain as many as we did, that's exciting. And we hope that other guys see, the guys that we re-sign. Look, what do these guys do well? If I'm a young player, let me follow what Matt Milano's done, what Deion Dawkins has done, what Tre'Davious White's done, what Levi Wallace has done. Just so many guys. John Feliciano and Daryl we didn't add, but they came in here and blended in and work hard and show up every day and great teammates. And that's the kind of people we're looking for.
And then one question about Matt Milano. I know the last time we talked to you, you said that he had the right to test the market and he deserves it based on how he's played. How did that kind of come together? It seemed like when we talked to him, his eyes were kind of set on Buffalo and maybe nothing really else.
Yeah, he did. At the end of the day, these guys, when they play it out, you want to let them honor their right to go out and test their market. But all along, we had hoped to get Matt back. And I think if, quite candidly, if we hadn't had the pandemic and the lowering of the cap and the uncertainty of where everything would be, I think we would have got Matt extended last year when we did Deion and Tre'Davious, but things were getting tight. And so we just, the great thing is we had very honest dialogue with Matt at that point in August that we wouldn't do it then, but that we would try like hell this spring to get it done. And kudos to him and Joel Siegel, for helping us get that.
Awesome. Thanks. Good to see you guys.
Thanks. You too, Maddie.
Gentlemen, good afternoon. Mookie Harkins, Fox Sports 1080. How's it going today?
Good, Mookie. Good to see you, buddy.
Great. I have two. I have one for you, Brandon, and one for Coach. I'm going to start off with you, Brandon. Dynamic veterans or dynamic rookies? What are the pros and cons, and which do you prefer?
I like dynamic, good football players. So I don't really care. I think the harder thing with rookies right now is this. We're still dealing with this limited offseason stuff that we're entering another uncertain offseason of how much the players will be here or not due to the pandemic that's going on. So it really makes it harder for rookies to contribute right away. It doesn't mean we won't count on rookies that we draft here to do that, but veterans kind of know the drill and it's easier. So, in this year, you probably still would like to have enough veterans, but we're still going to look for, major contributions from some of these upcoming picks in April.
Excellent. And Coach, this one is for you. Defensively, your team has struggled versus the tight end. And New England just added Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry to add to the mix. Now, signing Milano was a key element to that. But does that alter your roster in reference to more needs of linebackers or a position that you pretty much created hybrid?
Well, and to your point, our division's improving. That's why we have to continue to improve. And there's cap space with those couple teams that are in our division and draft capital. So we have to continue to push the envelope. And that's what we're trying to do. So re-signing, Brendan did a great job re-signing Matt. And we're going to continue to look to see what's out there, whether it is in free agency or through the draft as well, to continue to improve our roster. And listen, at the end of the day, we got to put the players in position, and they do have two good tight ends now up in New England.
Absolutely, man. Keep up the good work, guys.
Thanks,
Mookie.
Hi, Brandon. Hi, Sean. First one for Brandon. we're a couple days into this now here, and as expected, I mean, there still seems to be some players hitting the market from teams. From your perspective and the conversations that you've had, how much do you think an area where you've been successful is that kind of second, third wave of free agency in the past? How much more ample, if you will, is the field going to be to kind of pick from there?
Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of guys out there, interest on both sides. Our scouts are talking to agents all through the day, as are we, just, trying to stay afloat to what the market is. And, if there's guys that we think fit holes that we have, or depth players, whatever we're looking for, Matt, we'll try and fill them. Obviously, we're within, that we got to stay within the cap and all that. And listen, there's some really good players that we see getting signed that would be great fits, but that, they're signing for more than we can currently afford. So we'll continue looking and trying to find those pieces that maybe are looking for the right fit, and maybe, money's not their number one priority. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's location. Maybe they're hoping to join a team that was, on the AFC, in the AFC Championship, a step away. So we'll continue to monitor that, probably go on through the weekend into next week, and maybe even after that.
Great. And Sean, as you prepare for this season that's going to be, again, a tough challenge, what did you learn from that first year that you can kind of take into this process to kind of put yourself in a better situation than you were at last season? And you guys still did a pretty good job of it.
Kind of tell me your question again. You mentioned the first year, and then you mentioned this past season. So give me a.
Yeah, just in terms of what you took from last year, from the challenges of the offseason and preparing, how much more comfortable do you feel going into this, and the communication with your players and your staff to set yourself up for success with more kind of understanding what you're dealing with?
In terms of the COVID situation?
Yeah, in terms of COVID stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's hopefully, everyone continues to wear their mask and get the vaccination when they can, and socially distance from one another best we can. I think, things continue to evolve in our world around us, around the NFL as well. And we have to do our part. I think that's where it starts. And then with that being said, listen, the key is, and how we're wired here, we always learn from previous experiences. So we're hard at work trying to prepare ourselves to embrace whatever off season we do have. And make sure we do it better than we did it a year ago. We do have a little bit of a dry run. Last year, there was no playbook this time of year, not only in the NFL, but obviously in the world that we live in. So I've got a great staff. Brennan, his staff help. I mean, it's just all hands on deck to continue to try and grow and gain competitive advantages through the rules and guidelines and protocols that are handed down from the league.
Thank you.
Hey, Brennan, Sean, good to see you guys. Taking it back to the end of season press conference in January, Brandon, you said that you didn't feel like at any point an opponent had to, I guess, game plan around your tight ends. I'm curious, what is it that you're looking for in a tight end in order to improve that room?
Yeah, there's a variety of styles of tight ends. You got blockers, you got receivers, you got the guy that can do it all, block, catch, everything. We're just really looking for good players to add to the competition. We think Dawson going into year 3, big expectations for him. It's an important offseason for him, and we know he's already told us he's planning on linking up with Josh, out in California, which will be good just to, continue for those guys to get more reps. And Tommy Sweeney, unfortunately had his the COVID setback and was ruled out for the year, but he's excited about joining back in. And listen, we'll still continue to look for free agents out there, and then we'll also monitor the draft. But we'll continue to add depth to the position, and it's not one specific thing. It's just a really good player that, however Brian could use him, whether it's in the run game or the pass game.
Gotcha. And as far as one more question, you also had mentioned wanting to improve the running game, and this is for both you and Sean, whoever wants to answer, or both. what are you willing to do in order to do that? Does that involve, I mean, obviously you've brought the same offensive line back. Does that involve shaking up the running back room, adding a piece there? Are you more comfortable with like a running back by committee approach versus a feature back? Or what is the ideal plan in order to do that?
Brandon, go ahead. I'll let you start.
Yeah, I mean, Marcel, good question. Yeah, I mean, we believe that we have the pieces to run the ball better. Sometimes it's execution, sometimes it's reps. Again, the limited offseason isn't perfect for that, but that's something that I know Coach Dable and Bobby Johnson and Coach Skipper will be emphasizing this year is we want to be able to run it. And it's not that we didn't run it well, it's just you want to be able to run it even when they know you're going to run it. And we did that late in the Pittsburgh game. I thought it was very good, but there were some other times that we didn't. And again, we believe in Devin. We believe in Zach. And then again, we'll continue to look for competition, whether it's free agency or the draft, whether it's the O-line, or the running back room. But we feel good with who we have if we don't add anyone.
So, I didn't know if Sean was answering as well.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon covered most of it. We believe in the personnel we have. We can run the ball with the people we have, and that's where it starts. And then it's how do we feel is the best way to win. And if you take out 4-minute offense, as Brandon alluded to, it's putting together. And Brian and his staff did a great job this past season putting together the plan every week. And that's going to change every week, as you've heard me say before, strategically. So whatever we feel like it takes to win, that's what we're going to do. But we got to build it in training camp. And to Brandon's point, hopefully we'll have more of an opportunity this year to do that. We had an opportunity last year, don't get me wrong, but that's where you build the toughness of the team is in training camp. And so I'm looking forward to, like we all are, to get back to hopefully having our players in here at some point and getting back to work.
Definitely appreciate it, both of you. Like I said, good to see y'all.
You too.
You too, Marcel.
Hey, Brandon. Hey, Sean. You guys brought up those tough conversations that you have to have, tough decisions you had to make. John Brown mentioned he was a little caught off guard. Quentin might have mentioned something similar. How do you approach those conversations? It's probably hard for those guys not to be caught off guard, as professionals and competitors, but how do you approach those conversations to, further, foster that culture you're talking about and make sure guys know that you're being upfront as often as you possibly can?
I think, Matt, the first thing is honesty. And listen, I think everyone knew across the league this was going to be a tough offseason for guys. And whether it was Quentin or whether it was John Brown or whoever, those guys were in our plans pre-cap going down. And so it's a fluid situation until you know what you're going to do. And so I commend both those guys. Sean and I called them together and we shot them straight, and both of them handled it great. Again, it's hard. It's not easy. And because these guys are competitors just like we are, and they believe that, they have all the skills to continue to do their job at a high level, but sometimes it's not about their skill as much as it is, their dollar figure fitting it all in the cap. So again, honesty is probably the thing that Sean and I try to do with them the best we can. And they're very tough. We just got off the phone with Matt, and I think Sean mentioned it, Matt's family, his wife, Brittany, have just been really great for our community and a lot of the other families. And that's what makes it hard, the personal touch to it, beyond what they bring to us on the field.
And how do you guys feel about what you have up front on the defensive line? I know you're in the mix for J.J. Watt. How do you feel about that group as it stands right now?
Yeah, we like our group. We think those guys will be really good. But like anything, Matt, we've looked at positions that we haven't added other places. Sometimes they're not the name of J.J. Watt, so they draw different attention. But as you know, we kind of get in a lot of conversations with people. It doesn't mean it gets too far down the road or not. And so sometimes your names get drug out. There's many conversations we've been in that the Bills weren't listed. Maybe it was a lesser named player, or maybe the player went ahead and signed somewhere else. But we'll continue, over the coming weeks between now and the draft to look to add quality depth to what we have. And then we'll try and get the best players we can in the draft. And even after that, in May, sometimes there's guys that get released because they have a high cap number and a team drafted a player at that same position. They let them go to save some money. So this will continue even after the draft.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, Brandon, it's Jay with the Buffalo News. We saw last year with the trade for Stephon that you're unafraid to move your first round pick if you feel like it's going to better the team. Not asking you specifically if you're going to do that this year, but in general, the trade market, is that something that you are exploring, whether that be, player for player or player for draft pick? And just, can you characterize, the types of, has there been a lot of conversation about that, or a little throughout the league?
I think there's a lot of conversations where, whether it's a player on a team, Jay, that maybe a team is not going to be able to hold because of cap purposes, or that they're in a transition period or whatever, that they don't want to let the player go for nothing. And they'll say, hey, I'll take, X pick for them if you want them, because they don't want to release them. They want to get some value out of them. And at some point, maybe between now and the draft, those things happen, or there's already been conversations that teams have called us about guys that, probably calling around the league. They couldn't find a partner and they went ahead and released them. So those happen a lot too. They happen all the time. There's probably very few that actually occur, the trades that we do see in this league. There's a lot more conversations that happen behind the scenes.
Okay. And then secondly, for either yourself, Brandon, or for Sean, whoever wants to take it, I know it's not the sexiest question in the world, but why the change at punter?
Sean, you want me to answer, or do you want it?
Yeah, I'll take it. I mean, listen, we were always trying to improve our roster. Jay and Corey was in a situation where, he had a good year, and obviously we got to a situation where, both sides were talking. We just felt like at the end of the day, we had an opportunity that was best for our team, and obviously we wish Corey the best. Brandon, I'll let you handle the rest.
Yeah, I think Sean nailed it. The one thing, Jay, is we got a young kicker. We plan to have Reed here as a long snapper. And I think we were looking for someone who definitely wanted to be here for the long term. And I think, Corey had a really good year, and we weren't on the same page. And so, we decided to look elsewhere, and very excited. We've obviously seen Matt up close down in Miami, and he's in the building, and we're excited to add him to our group.
Thanks, both of you guys. Appreciate it. Good to see you.
You too, Jay. Thanks.
Hey, Sean, Brandon, good to see you guys. Brandon, I'll start with you. Going back to kind of, maybe some of the needs of this team back at the end of the year's Zoom call, you mentioned the need to improve the pass rush. And I know you had, re-signed, brought some guys back on the D-line, but I guess how important is that to improve that area? And do you think you need to add more in terms of the pass rush when it comes to the guys you have?
Well, Meg, we'll definitely always look to add, that. And so what I would say is, there's a lot of guys out there. We're still looking. I know it was mentioned JJ Watt earlier. It's still got to be a right fit. We got a lot of guys coming back. We'll have year 2 with Eric Washington, Mario Vernon, Starr will be back. So I think we're going to have more continuity. And early in the year, I think I mentioned it, I didn't feel like these guys were in sync with rush games and all that. I thought after the first 4 or 5 games, they really got into their groove and started getting better. And we anticipate, these guys to pick up, where they left off.
And a question for either of you, just kind of a simple question. Obviously, when you talk about the offense and building around Josh even more, signing a guy like Emmanuel Sanders, how much dialogue or how much communication do you guys have with Josh in the offseason, maybe after you make a move, or, I guess just what's that dialogue like with you and Josh, if there is any?
Yeah, I would say it's a healthy amount. And Josh is a cornerstone to our foundation and our organization. The way he's elevated his game, the work he's put in, he's earned that. And so between Brandon, myself, Coach Table, I would say between the three of us, there's definitely a healthy amount. Sometimes maybe to the point where Josh would just probably wish we'd stop calling him. So, but no, I think it's a good amount, and he's earned that.
Yeah, Heather, and I think Josh has a good pulse of our locker room. Sometimes if you're talking about a player adding or losing, you will run that by Josh, and he's great about being candid of this is what I know and or I don't know, and he supports everything we do, which is great to have in a young leader of our team.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Good to see you again.
You too, Heather.
Thanks, Heather.
Hey, Sean, Brandon, good to see you guys. Sean, I think if you could do this one, Brandon just mentioned Star, and I think when he opted out before the season, at least maybe the perception was, of course he's going to be missed, but you look at the numbers on the page and obviously they don't jump out like some other players. And I'm wondering, after a year of reflecting with him coming back, what did the defense miss without him there, and what will he bring back to the defense?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the person, that he brings a lot to our locker room in terms of his presence, in terms of his experience, not only in the locker room, but also in the defensive line room itself. And then that obviously impacts our defense. But in terms of the on the grass part of it is really the size, the early down ability to factor in at the line of scrimmage, Matt. So I would say that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Cool. And then Brandon, we just talked about, the punting change, Tyler Reed, but Andre Roberts heads elsewhere, 2-time Pro Bowler while he was with you. And you guys have said in the past, that's something that you care about. The return game, field position matters. Is that a position that you feel confident? Maybe you have somebody on the roster who can do it. Is that something that you think might need to be addressed? Free agency, the draft, kind of a just general game plan there?
Yeah, well, we're going to miss Andre. This guy's a Pro Bowl returner. And again, he's one of the pieces I was referring to without name that we would have loved to have had him back. But you got to pick and choose, what you can do. And I'm sure Houston's very excited to add him to the mix. So we don't have, that answer necessarily right now on the roster. We'll continue to look here in free agency and then as well evaluate, the guys that are coming up in the draft.
Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate your time.
Thanks,
Sure.
Matt.
Hi, guys.
What's up, Vic?
Yeah,
Hey, Vic.
how you doing? I want this to be first for both of you. You mentioned why it makes sense for Mitch Trubisky to have this, Brandon, you termed it a one-year reset, which I would think would apply to any team with whom he signed this one-year sort of backup situation type deal. Okay. But in terms of for the Bills, why was this something that made sense for you? Again, I'm asking you, Brandon and Sean. But besides even the football, I know you said he's got maybe similar physical characteristics to Josh, but you have your big picture here. Why is a 1 year sort of stop for this guy good for the Buffalo Bills?
Well, I would say, Vic, we were a game away from the Super Bowl, and injuries happen. And this guy's won 29 games, 50 starts. Like, he's got a good resume, even though he's a younger player. And we know how Josh plays. Josh is not scared to try and lower his pads or take a hit. And if Josh was out for a few weeks or something like that, we want to make sure we have the best player that we can. And no matter if it's like any other position for depth, and whether it's a backup tackle, a backup defensive lineman, whatever, you got your starters and then you got your depth players. And we just think Mitchell will come in here. He's going to, be excited to join in the mix. And assuming he's the backup or whatever, if Josh goes down, that with his experience, he would be able to keep the ship afloat until Josh got back in the lineup.
And same for Sean.
Yeah, I don't see it much different, honestly, Vic. I mean, I don't really want to be repetitive here, but we're always trying to add good pieces to our football team. It is an important position, right? I mean, we all would agree that the quarterback is an important position, and we want to make sure that we continue to add good football players at every position, in this position in particular, and so we felt like it was an opportunity for us to do that.
And Brandon, in any way, does it, it could feel like a luxury that a team is in the position you are, like you said, you got one game from the Super Bowl, the luxury of being able to get the number 2 overall pick, former number 2 overall pick of the draft as your backup quarterback. One could look at it that way a little bit and say, hey, they can do this along with the other things you've done. Is that a fair assessment?
I hope it turns out to be a luxury. I hope Josh plays all 16 games and then, whatever, if we can get in the playoffs and whatever there. So if that happens, it is a luxury, but you never know. Each year, is a new year, and injuries happen in this business. And again, it's no different at quarterback. It's Sean just meant it's the most critical, position in all sports. And so you want to have as much quality depth as you can, just in case your starter would be out for a number of weeks.
Last thing, Sean already answered this for you. Patriots adding the plethora of tight ends that they did, and in general, the rest of the AFC East. How do you see it? Those moves can easily be interpreted as, okay, we got to do something to come after the Bills. How do you look at what's happening elsewhere in the division?
Yeah, we knew looking at the other 3 teams in the division that these guys had a lot, they'd saved up a lot of cap space and done a really nice job. And there's been some really good players that they've acquired, and that's where they are, in their build. And where we are is in retaining our own and probably less cap dollars. But it's going to be a very competitive division, with those other 3 teams. We won it this year. But we know it'll be even harder next year if we're going to try and win it again. And you knew that Coach Belichick, the tight ends, you knew that, look at the success they had, with Gronkowski and Hernandez and some of those guys. I have a feeling that's kind of what they're trying to restart there. And it'll be a tough matchup, for Sean and Leslie and our defensive players. Thanks, Vic.
Hey, Brandon. Hey, Sean.
What's up, Joe?
This is for Brandon. When a team is so tight to the cap, like you guys have referenced that you are so often, I know a popular thing is, just people going, okay, well, just convert this base salary into a signing bonus. But I'm just wondering what the level of caution you need to have when you actually decide to do those things in terms of long-term ramifications, when you still have to get your franchise quarterback under contract for the long term.
Yeah, it's that's the big thing for us is, we haven't finalized the deal with Josh, and that's the biggest piece, not only this year, but years to come, and working every other deal around that, and obviously the uncertainty of the cap changed things for us. But, you can fit as much as you want, as you well know, with converting and restructure and all these things. But the more you do that, the more you kick it down the road. And so, not that we won't use it, this year we've had to be a little more creative than I had planned a year ago, Joe. But it's not something that I want to make a habit of. I like to be able to not have an albatross staring at me, the next 2 years down the road. So we'll try and keep deals so that we can get in and get out of them, and not, all of a sudden you get right to the threshold and you got to every year release 4, 5, 6 players just to get under the cap. It's just, I've been a part of that before, and it's not something I enjoy doing.
And then this one goes to both of you. I know cornerback is a position that you've always been looking to improve upon. You added Kevin Johnson a couple of years ago. You added Josh Norman last year. I know, Brandon, you talked about Dane Jackson shortly after the season ended. But where do things lie with the cornerback position? And are you looking to improve upon that spot, even though you brought Levi back as well?
Yeah, it's the same thing. We're excited to get Levi back. He's done a great job, his first 3 years here. And we have brought in competition, and, he's handled it very well. And Dane, when he got his opportunities last year, thought he did some really good things. But, right now those two guys will compete it out. There are other free agents that we'll monitor, but at the end of the day, we're very content with those two guys, and, we'll see what happens. Sean, you can add to that if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Brandon said. It's a critical piece to our defense. How the rush and the coverage work together. So Levi's done a nice job. Dane, when he was in there, did a nice job. So, again, the competition at the position will be important for us to continue to improve our overall defense.
Thanks, guys.
Sure.
Hey, Brendan, Sean, good to see you guys. Sorry, I'm jumping in a bit late here. That hockey team in town has kept us busy for the last little bit here. Most of what I had has been covered in terms of questions, but I guess, Brandon, I'll ask you this. I wouldn't ordinarily ask you about something that didn't work out, but there's been a report. I think there's some interest. You guys take a run at Gronk?
Gronk, we spoke to his representative about him, definitely. Again, just like we do with JJ Watt or these other guys, but we never made an official offer or anything like that, but we did check in on him to see, if there would be an interest. And I think there was some interest, but at the end of the day, probably would have been an upset for him to leave Tom Brady.
All right, I was going to ask you, can you elaborate any more on what those talks were like, or is that pretty much as far?
Yeah.
The local angle, I think people are interested in that.
Yeah. I think he expressed some interest, that this might be an opportunity that he would consider. And so, we exchanged, some back and forth with the agent, just understanding, what his market would be and what they would be looking for and what his role here would be and how we saw it. And that's what you do with a lot of players. But again, like JJ Watt, Gronk's a big name. And so some of those get leaked out. There's many more that happen the same that don't get leaked out.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
You got it.
Hey, you guys got me. This is a question for both of you guys. Ashley Holder with Channel 2.
Ashley.
Hey, Ashley.
Hey, so the question for me is just helping with the cap space. Players like Mario Addison and Vernon Butler just kind of restructuring their deals or taking less money. What's that say about them, and how do they handle those certain conversations that you were able to have with them?
Yeah, those guys, those are very tough conversations, Ashley. But I commend, all the guys, Mitch and that jumped in there as well. And, we've got such great pros and very honest conversations. And those guys, they wanted to be here. They want to win. They want to be a part of it. It was never an ultimatum for any of them. Take this or you won't be here. It was, can you help us here? And we want to try and keep as many guys as we can, which I think we showed these guys the next week once we got those restructures done to re-sign some of our own. And I think the guys appreciate that. Again, always tough when you're talking about the business part, but I think all those guys handled it very well, and we're really appreciative.
Yeah, Ashley, the word that comes to mind is unselfish. I think that's a key characteristic of good teams. So very appreciative, as Brandon mentioned, but big time move with the guys that were able to do it, and we appreciate it, but very unselfish.
All right, thanks.
Sure. Thanks, Ashley.
Hey, Brandon. Hi, Sean. Thank you for taking the time. For Brandon first, how important was it to get Ike Butker back after he proved to be a key depth piece and a starter on the offensive line last season?
Yeah, Ike did a great job. He showed it wasn't too big for him and really played some meaningful minutes down the stretch for us and was a big part of our run to that AFC Championship game. And so very excited, to be able to tender him and get him back and look forward to what he'll bring here in year 4.
Definitely. And for Sean, we know the skills that Emmanuel Sanders can bring on the field, but how can he help off the field in the wide receiver room with some of the younger receivers on the roster?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a little bit of a veteran room, I'd say, Dante, overall with Diggs, Cole, Emmanuel. And then some of our younger guys have been in the league a couple of years now. So we've got a pretty experienced wide receiver room. But whenever you have veterans in the room that are like the couple that I mentioned here, those guys are always counted on to help younger guys, not just by what they say, but more importantly by what they do and how they are on the field as well as off the field.
Thank you.
Sure.
We can't hear you, Andy. He's the last question.
Okay.
Still can't hear you. Wow. Well, hate to do this, but I think we have to end it. He's unmuted right now. But. All right, guys.
All right, thank you, guys. Stay safe.
Thank you.